somewhere off a highway exit right now, probably one you've driven past 100 times without a second look. There's an ugly beige building made of metal boxes. No sign worth remembering, no employees in polos greeting you at the door. Half the time, nobody's even inside. And that boring building? It's quietly outperforming the restaurant down the street, the boutique gym around the corner, and yes, probably the business you've been dreaming about starting yourself. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how someone with a few $1,000s, not a few $100,000, a few thousand, could realistically work their way toward a 7-figure storage business. And you'll know the 3 quiet mistakes that wipe out almost everyone who tries. Here's the part that should genuinely bother you. A restaurant owner works 12-hour days, juggling inventory that spoils, staff that quits every few months, and margins that hover, if they're lucky, around 3 to 5%. A coffee shop owner is competing against a chain with a marketing budget bigger than the shop itself. And a storage facility owner can clear operating margins above 60% with a part-time manager checking in twice a week. No perishable inventory, no walk-in customers to charm. Almost nothing that requires a human being to be standing there at 3 in the afternoon on a random Tuesday. Same economy, same country, wildly different outcomes. So what exactly is going on inside that beige building? And why doesn't everyone already own one? Think about what a storage facility doesn't have to do. It doesn't need to taste good. It doesn't need a 5-star rating. It doesn't need to be trendy or seasonal or Instagrammable. It just needs to be there when someone's life gets messy enough that they need somewhere, anywhere, to put their stuff for a while. And life, reliably, gets messy. That's not a cynical observation. That's the entire foundation of the business. Self-storage exists because Americans own more stuff than they have space for, and life keeps manufacturing reasons to need somewhere to put it. A divorce, a downsize, a death in the family, a small business that outgrew the garage. Every one of those situations produces a renter who doesn't negotiate, rarely complains, and, this is the part nobody says out loud, often forgets they're even paying. Keep that in mind, we'll come back to it. And here's a number that surprises most people. The average tenant sticks around 12 to 15 months, sometimes far longer, not because they love the facility, but because hauling everything back out is more effort than most people are willing to make. So let's follow the money. Rent is the obvious piece. A standard 10 by 10 unit might run $80 to $150 a month in a mid-size market, climbing toward $200 or more in dense coastal metros. But here's the twist nobody puts in the pitch deck. Late fees aren't a side effect, they're a real profit center. Storage tenants are notoriously slow payers, and a meaningful slice of facility income comes from fees on rent that shows up 10, 20, 30 days late. Then there's auction income. When someone stops paying and ignores the legal notices, and eventually, plenty do, the facility can auction off whatever's inside that unit. Sometimes it's junk. Sometimes it's thousands of dollars in furniture, tools, or collectibles. Either way, the owner gets paid, whether the tenant ever comes back or not. There's also a quieter revenue stream almost nobody outside the industry talks about: the annual rate increase. Most facilities raise existing tenants' rent every year, often 5 to 10%, because moving your stuff out of a unit is more annoying than absorbing the hike. New tenants get quoted a competitive rate to walk in the door. Existing tenants, months later, quietly pay more for the exact same box. Add tenant insurance requirements, administrative fees, and moving supply sales at the front counter, and ancillary income alone can add another 10 to 15% on top of base rent, without adding a single square foot of space. Now, one term you need before we go further: NOI, net operating income. It's just your revenue minus your operating costs before loan payments. It's the number that tells you what the property actually earns. Here's the gut check. A 50,000 square foot facility, average rent around $110 a month, sitting at roughly 90% occupancy. That's somewhere near $600,000 a year in gross rent. Strip out typical operating costs, property tax, insurance, a manager, maintenance, marketing, and you're often left with well over $300,000 in NOI. From one property, run in many cases by 1 or 2 people. Try finding that ratio in a restaurant. You won't. But wait, if it's this good, why doesn't everyone already own one? Because the parts that look easy on paper are exactly where people get quietly, slowly destroyed. Rock number 1, zoning. Not every parcel of land is legally allowed to have a storage facility on it, and a growing number of cities have started actively blocking new storage development because, frankly, it generates almost no foot traffic and modest tax revenue compared to retail or housing. You can fall in love with a plot of land, run the numbers, get excited, and then discover the city will never approve it. People lose deposits over this constantly. Rock number 2, oversupply. Storage is deceptively cheap to build relative to other commercial real estate, which means popular markets flood fast. Across parts of the Sun Belt, developers built so aggressively after the pandemic that new supply outpaced actual demand, and rents in some of those markets have softened as a result, a pattern industry analysts have flagged repeatedly heading into 2026. The lesson? This business is hyperlocal. A great national trend means nothing if your 5-mile radius already has 4 half-empty facilities fighting over the same renters. Rock number 3. And this one kills people quietly, over months, not all at once. Financing traps. A lot of storage acquisitions get funded with short-term bridge loans carrying a balloon payment, meaning the entire remaining balance comes due all at once on a fixed date. If rates move against you and refinancing on favorable terms isn't there when that date arrives, you can lose a profitable, fully occupied property, not because the building failed, but because the financing did. Rock number 4. The stuff that doesn't show up on a spreadsheet until it's already a problem. Roofs leak, gates jam. Unmanned facilities attract vandalism and theft when security is weak, and a single break-in wave can tank your online reviews and your occupancy at the same time. Because in this business, your reputation online is doing a huge amount of the selling for you. And rock number 5, the quiet one, vacancy churn. A facility that looks 90% full on paper can still bleed cash if move-outs aren't backfilled fast, because an empty unit still costs property tax and insurance while earning exactly $0. Add rising insurance premiums in regions prone to wildfire, flood, or severe storms, a real and growing cost pressure across the industry. And your expenses can climb faster than your rents, without you noticing until the year-end numbers land ugly. None of these 5 rocks is dramatic by itself. That's precisely what makes them dangerous. Nobody loses a storage facility in one catastrophic afternoon. They lose it slowly. A zoning delay here, a softening market there, a refinance that lands at the worst possible moment, a slow leak of vacancies nobody caught in time. The people who succeed aren't the ones who found some secret. They're the ones who treated the boring parts as seriously as the exciting ones. So, how does someone actually get in without $500,000 sitting around? There are 3 real doors, and they lead to genuinely different experiences. Door 1, the low capital entry. Some people buy a handful of used shipping containers or portable storage units, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a piece. Place them on rented or owned land and rent them out directly. No massive construction loan, no ground-up build. Others take a completely different route. They sign a management contract to run someone else's existing facility for a cut of revenue, learning the entire operation with none of their own capital at risk. It's slower, the upside per unit is modest, but it's a real foothold, built on a few $1,000s instead of a few $100,000. Door 2, the medium capital play, roughly $50,000 to $300,000. This is where you put a down payment on an existing small facility, say 100 units in a secondary market nobody's paying attention to, and improve it. Better gates, cameras, a repaved lot. Lenders typically want 20 to 30% down here. Realistic before and after? A $600,000 facility sitting at 70% occupancy because the previous owner let it rot, nursed back up to 90% after modest renovations, can nearly double its NOI within 18 to 24 months. Not a fantasy number. Just what recovering a below-market, undermanaged property to a normal occupancy rate actually looks like. Door 3, the big capital path, $500,000 and up. Ground-up construction or converting an existing structure, an old big-box retailer, a vacant warehouse, into climate-controlled storage. Slower, 18 months to 3 years once you factor in permitting and construction, but you control the entire unit mix from day one, and you can price climate-controlled space 20 to 40% above basic drive-up units. Notice the trade-off threading through all 3 doors. The lower the capital, the more of the work lands on you personally. The higher the capital, the more the business behaves like real estate and less like a hustle. Architects, contractors, and lenders doing the heavy lifting at the cost of a much longer runway before you see a dollar of profit. Neither path is objectively better. They're different bets on how much of your time versus your money you're willing to risk first. Now, here's where most videos on this topic stop. But the real upside right now isn't just renting boxes, it's what you put inside them. Cold storage conversion is real, and demand is genuinely climbing for food distribution and pharmaceutical logistics alike. But don't get seduced before you see the price tag. Industrial refrigeration retrofits can run anywhere from $50 to $150 per square foot, depending on the temperature range required. And pharmaceutical-grade cold storage adds a layer of regulatory compliance most small operators simply aren't built for. Niche play, right market only, not a strategy you copy-paste everywhere. RV and boat storage, by contrast, is almost embarrassingly simple. A fenced paved lot with minimal construction can command a premium price per square foot over a standard indoor unit, because there's often nowhere else in a suburban area to legally park a 30-foot camper. Wine storage and classic car storage serve a wealthier niche willing to pay for climate control and tight security, but the customer pool is small. This works better layered onto an existing facility than as your entire business. And then there's the one almost nobody's talking about yet. E-commerce sellers increasingly renting storage units as mini warehouses for inventory staging and last-mile delivery. No construction required. You're renting the same box to a different kind of customer, one who might need 3 units instead of 1, and who's far less likely to vanish on you than a hobbyist storing old furniture. Here's the pattern underneath all of it, worth remembering the next time someone pitches you a storage niche.
The upgrades that work raise your price per square foot without raising your operating complexity by nearly as much. A paved RV lot, an app-based lock upgrade, a slightly better camera system. The upgrades that fail quietly turn you into a harder, different business, wearing a storage costume. Pharmaceutical cold storage with compliance officers, or a specialty wine vault demanding humidity precision most operators have never touched. Before chasing any of these, ask yourself, are you adding a feature or adopting an entirely new industry? Let's ground this in a real cautionary tale, because any version of this story that only shows winners is lying to you. Developers who overbuilt and oversaturated Sunbelt metros during the post-pandemic construction boom are now sitting on softening
financial decision you make this decade. Not because it's secret, not because you found something nobody else knows, but because everyone else looking at that same beige building drives right past it, assuming there's nothing interesting happening inside. The building was never the interesting part. What you do before you buy it is, and that part, unlike the building itself, doesn't cost you a single dollar to get right.